Love y'all. Hi, Forever family. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ, and I'm forever free from drug addiction, sex, and porn addiction. I am a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, and I have bipolar disorder. My name is Bobbi. December the 4th of 1972, I was born to a single mother. I have 3 sisters and 2 brothers that were 13 to 20 years older than me. Yes, I was an oops baby. My daddy died 2 months before I was born. My mom had a hard time bonding with me because of my daddy's death. So our relationship has always been strained. She did the best she could to raise me. She was faithful to God and to our church. We were there anytime the doors were open. She did her best to teach me the Bible and its meaning to my life. As I was growing up at home, my brother Mike lived with us. He was an addict and an alcoholic. He held down a job, but he was in jail on occasions. There were nights that I had to help my brother up the stairs to his room because he was too drunk or too high to make it on his own. I would clean his room, and I would find his drugs and his drug paraphernalia, and I told myself growing up I would never be like him. I would never do drugs, but that's later in the story. At the age of 6, I was starting to be sexually abused by a man that lived next door to me. He was supposed to be a grandfather to me. Through the abuse, he would watch porn. So I was introduced to porn at the age of 6. He abused me till I was 12, when I was told I was too grown for him. I was scared to tell anyone because I felt like I would not be believed or taken away like he said I would. He also made me believe that the only thing I would be good at was to satisfy men. And this is where the sexual addiction started. By the time I was 14, I was having sex with any boy or man that would pay attention to me. I thought this was the way it was supposed to be. By the time I was 16, I became pregnant with my first child. At 17, in the 11th grade, I had my daughter. I fell in love at the first sight of her. I finally had someone that could love me unconditionally. Realizing sex is what got me pregnant, I tried to stay away from it. But a so-called guy friend decided different for me, and I was raped. I ended up pregnant from the rape, and when my mom found out, she took me to get an abortion. I regretted this decision now because of what I know. I graduated high school at the age of 18 and met my first husband, future first husband. After graduation in May of 91, I moved to the big city of Warren, Arkansas with him. I soon got pregnant again. November the 30th of 91, I was getting married, and in February, I had my son. And again, I had somebody to love me without condition. When my son was just 6 months old, I had the first of many suicide attempts. I was placed in a mental ward of a hospital where I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And the beginning of the memories I buried deep down in me about the sexual abuse come flooding back in my mind. And this was just the beginning of the mental hospital stays. But in the past 10 years, I have not been placed in a mental hospital or had any suicide attempts. On my second wedding anniversary, though, my brother Mike was murdered and buried before I turned 21. My marriage was rocky through the whole 13 years, but we did have a few good times. We had money, so vacations were frequent, deer hunting, and other occasions with visiting family. May of '99, I graduated nursing school. My husband took us to the Bahamas and to Orlando for the kids to see Disney World. I started working as a nurse when I came home. I worked regular 16-hour shifts, so I didn't get to be with the family much. He worked long hours too, so our kids didn't get to see us much. By August of 2002, my bipolar was out of control because my husband didn't believe in mental health issues and he wouldn't allow me to take the medicine to treat me. He was very controlling. Though my nursing career, I found out I was losing my hearing and ended up in hearing aids. Sometime in 2003, I went on disability for bipolar disorder and hearing loss. I met this woman in 2003 who I thought would be a great friend. Her kids and my kids went to school together and played together. Little did I know she was an alcoholic and a drug addict. Memorial weekend of 2003, she took me to Greenville, Mississippi to the boats, and she introduced me to crack cocaine. I tried to tell her I didn't want to do it, but she continued to press the issue. So my naive thought was I would do a little of it and tell her I didn't like it, but that wasn't the case. This weekend started the roller coaster life of becoming a drug addict. Through 2003, I spiraled down through drug life, and my bipolar was all over the place. In August of 2003, I was put in my first drug rehab for 30 days. Once I came home, I stayed clean for 2 weeks and ended up using again. This landed me in divorce by December. I moved back home with my mom, and it split my kids between parents. Once home and in recovering from the addiction and the divorce, I then decided to go back to nursing again. I met my soon-to-be second husband in 2005. He was a good man, so I thought. I finally thought I was going to have a good life. I was nursing again and dealing with a teenage daughter that was out of control. I saw she was following my footsteps with boys and drugs. I had a hard time dealing with her and a cheating husband, and I relapsed one night, thinking this would relieve my stress. All it did was get my nursing license suspended. I lost my career due to drug addiction. John 10:10, the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. So I could no longer nurse until I met the requirements of my suspension. Since I was losing my hearing, I decided I was no longer an effective nurse anyway, so I went back on disability. My bipolar went up and down, and I had struggles staying clean. By December of 2007, I was seeking my second divorce for adultery. From 2007, I started living with my mom on and off throughout the years. I stayed clean for the majority of the time. In October of 2008, I greeted my first granddaughter. She was the love of my life. And I was on medication at this time for my bipolar, and I was seeking help from the mental clinic. But sometime in 2012, I relapsed hard, and for 2 years I used and had sexual relations with men that would pay attention to me. March the 11th of 2014, my life, I felt, was over. I finally admitted to my family I was using again. but instead sending me to rehab, they let me go another direction. I had a very good friend, Richard Tatum, post about Celebrate Recovery at First NLR. That Thursday, my daughter drove me to this huge church with too many steps to climb and into a place where there were too many happy people and too bubbly preacher. I did not want to be there, as you can see. I sat where I thought I was away from all the people, but the preacher zoomed in on me and came bouncing my way. But he could see the despair and hopelessness in my eyes. I was told I was in a safe place and the people could love me back to life. At first, I didn't believe him, and it took me about 3 months before I would even speak. Once I finally decided to give this place a try, I started listening to the people and what they said. I didn't feel so alone. By August of 2014, I started my first of 4 step studies. I opened up about the sexual abuse, the rape, and the abortion. I thought I was really getting through it, and it was a start, and it took me a little longer to really forgive and let go of the heartache and the pain that it caused me. I worked my recovery, and I got back into having faith in God again for 5 years. I then let hard feelings get in the way, and I thought I had my addiction under control. Little did I know relapse was just around the corner. 1 Corinthians 10:12. So if you think you're standing firm, be careful that you don't fall. Well, I fell and back into my addiction. When I came home, I realized I had to go back to recovery meetings. I went back with my head hung low, but everyone welcomed me back with open arms. They loved me and told me I could make it again. But did it really sink in? I came back, but I really didn't work my recovery or reached out for help. But for 2 years, I struggled to remain clean. Eventually, I relapsed again and received my first charges. And this made my family step in, and in December the 8th of 21, I went to New Heart's recovery home for 6 months. We came to what was called Care and Recovery, and I tried to get back what I had lost. I graduated after 6 months. The month before my 9 months of sobriety, I was having using nightmares. I tried to get help, but nothing seemed to be there for me. So I did what I knew would cure them, drugs. This time was my lowest, and I didn't know what to do. I was so embarrassed to come back, but Pastor Lane was insistent that I come back and work my recovery again. So I walked that long walk once again, and everybody still loved on me where I was at. And I was told they were not going to give up on me. One woman of strength basically told me she wasn't ready to see me at my funeral and that she loved me. Thank you, Marcia. November the 22nd of 22, I rededicated my life to Christ. I surrendered it all to Him. I was ready to give up everything so I could have a life again. December the 3rd, right before my birthday, I was rebaptized by Lane, and I left so much in that water to drown. I knew this was the only way I could do it. I was in a process group, not knowing how deep this class was really going to be and what group of women I would be with, that I was able to heal from the sexual abuse, the rape, and the deep regret from my abortion. Ecclesiastes 4:12, though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands are not easily broken. I finally figured out I had to have these women and some of the men in my life to work recovery. I could not do this alone. To the newcomer, if it works, if you work it, it will work. And you can't work it alone. Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ that gives me strength. You can overcome anything with Christ and your forever family cheering on beside you. You can walk this recovery. You can heal from all your pain and guilt you've been carrying all this time by coming to Forever Free and starting a process group. There is nothing to fear. Psalms 27:1, the Lord is your light and salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is my stronghold of my life. Whom shall I be afraid? I want you to know you are God's masterpiece. Ephesians 2:10, we are God's masterpiece. He created us new in Christ Jesus so we can do good things he had planned for us long ago. God is no amateur potter, but he is an artist who has already begun to shape us into his masterpiece. He can do for you what he done for me. He rescued me from the pits of hell and placed my feet on solid foundation. So don't quit trusting Jesus and work your recovery because your life depends on it. You are enough. Thank you for letting me share. Thank you.